And now, straight from the horse's mouth, our Neil Young News Report.
Smell the horse on this one.
With this week's update from ThrashersWheat.org, here's Thrasher.
Hey, Thrasher here with this week's Neil Young news and fresh wheat in every direction as far as the eye can see. So, Neil Young just completed his European 2014 tour of Europe with Crazy Horse. So what's Neil Young going to do? Is he going to go to Disney World? No. One of the first announcements coming out after the tour conclusion is that a date has been announced for a new concert called Harvest for Hope concert. It's going to be with Willie Nelson. It's going to be in Nebraska on September the 27th, a Saturday. And this is going to be to support the farmers and residents of that area of the Midwest in their opposition to the Keystone tar sands pipeline. So the fundraiser will be supporting that cause to protect the aquifer out in that area. So this will literally be a Field of Dreams type of concert. It will literally take place in a cornfield. This is going to be a build it and they will come, and apparently they are coming. The concert sold out pretty much immediately after being announced. So the Harvest for Hope concert will be held just after the next weekend after Farm Aid. Farm Aid will be in Raleigh, North Carolina this year. And if that's not big enough news for folks, the other big news at the moment in Neil Young world is that it appears as if Neil Young has returned to the recording studio and is laying down tracks. We have all sorts of evidence of this, photographic evidence from the studio. Neil Young is recording with a full-blown orchestra and a choir, or some degree of a orchestra and some degree of a choir. Some of the images that we've posted up on Facebook show a choir and orchestra and various arrangers and composers and so on. Neil Young had, this isn't a total surprise because Neil Young had mentioned earlier this year when he was doing A Letter Home, which was sort of the opposite of this arrangement, that he was interested in doing something in an old school style with an orchestra and a choir. So we will just have to see how this all proceeds. It's not completely unprecedented for the Living with War album. Neil Young recorded a track with a large choir. And if we had to guess in terms of what tracks they might be laying down, new tracks as well as maybe tracks that were played recently, we'd have to put right up there at the top Neil's new song, Who's Gonna Stand Up and Save the Earth. That would seem that would work well with that type of arrangement, possibly. Neil Young also played Separate Ways and Standing in the Light of Love on the last tour. Those are not new songs, but they're unreleased and seem to have been modified, the lyrics especially Standing in the Light of Love. So maybe that would be a potential. Maybe the song we heard last summer, Hole in the Sky. And we just suggest these because there could be a big environmental angle on all of this. Certainly all of the work that Neil Young has done in the years would sort of point to this and the topic of some of his songs. So we'll just have to see. We'll keep our ear to the ground and see what turns up here in the coming days, weeks, months for this newest effort. Okay, and we'll just wrap it up here. We'll mention that, as folks probably know and have heard, here in the US of A, in a town called Ferguson, Missouri. We've had the Tin Soldiers and Nixon Coming scenario. We took quite a bit of grief and flack for trying to draw an analogy between what happened at Kent State, Ohio in 1970 and what's happening in Ferguson, Missouri in 2014, that there are any similarities whatsoever, other than the fact that they both had National Guard troops moved in on peaceful demonstrators, and the fact that Nixon was involved in both of them. Now, granted, Governor Nixon and President Nixon are definitely two different political officials, but they do have that name, so we'll stand by the Tin Soldiers and Nixon Coming part of it. Now, whether there's still the larger analogy between the two events, we can say that in 1970, National Guard that were sent in to calm down protesters resulted in a very tragic outcome, and not exactly what anyone hoped for in terms of the militarization of police. And if anything, the situation has gotten far, far, far worse since 1970. So, those who forget the past are sort of doomed to repeat it in the future. So we'll leave it at that and just say thanks to Eric and Tony at WBKM.org up there in Burlington, Vermont. We know who's going to stand up and save the earth, don't we, guys?